with for web page development with outside organizations. And I think we might even consider hiring Ben as soon as he graduates from high school.
You're in high school?
Graduates from high school.
I'll be a senior next year.
Holy smokes. A new labor source has been identified.
That's right. Don't tell him.
Ben actually has some good, I think, exposure to Kaiser Permanente. His father is a Permanente medical group physician. So,
But we're learning a lot from him, I can tell you.
we're
Oh,
learning.
now I'm linking a deal to a name to a face. Okay, okay.
We're learning
Gotcha,
a
okay.
lot. I have to tell you, it's been an absolute delight working with Ben. And we'd like to go ahead and thank Larry Klass for the AV cookout. Let's see, how are we doing? Yeah, let's go ahead. Peter, are you able to see me and see what we're up to?
I can see the sheet there, the recommended
Okay.
recommendations. and
Okay.
that.
Good, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Turn the floor. Where's my copy?
That's me.
Oh,
Thank you.
let's go. All right, why don't we go ahead? What we're going to do today is give you a chance to meet the internet. If you haven't actually waded through and done a little surfing yourself, we're going to give you a chance to see some of the internet offerings and specifically World Wide websites. We're going to talk about why the internet's important to Kaiser Permanente, what ways might we do business on the internet, and what do we need to do organizationally, what are the recommendations from the two work groups. We have a combined project recommendation for you, and what resources might that take. Let's move forward. And I'm going to ask Ben to talk a little bit about how the internet developed real quickly.
Okay, this is a brief history of the internet. It was basically started in 1969 as a Department of Defense project. In 1972, they developed email as a way of personal communication. In 1973, the first international connections were made with the UK. 1979, the Usenet was established, which became the first forum for having electronic discussions that involved multiple participants. 1983, the military network split off from the public network. 1986, the National Science Foundation took control of a backbone of the internet as we know it today. In 1991, the first information search tools were released to enable people to find things among the growing amounts of information that were available electronically. 1992, the World Wide Web was developed by European particle physicists as a way of sharing and collaborating on information. 1993, Mosaic, the first graphical World Wide Web browser, which allowed the concept of hypertext to be expanded and include multimedia, pictures, video, audio. 1994, Netscape Communication Corporation was founded. The first retail transactions began to take place over the internet. Today, 1995, a year of opportunity for Kaiser Permanente. I'd also like to announce that 4 days ago, MasterCard and Netscape Communications Corporation made a press release regarding the Secure Courier Standard, which Netscape and MasterCard will be jointly developing as a way for secure credit card transactions to take place over the internet, which is a very exciting possibility.
I think once that financial transaction capability is in place with encryption and security services around financial transactions, that will probably help most corporate environments to look at realizing some of the business benefit that we all think intuitively might be there, but we haven't been able to define what it's going to be. I'll be honest with you, the number of real business transactions across the internet focus around information sharing, information access, and very little retail exchange goes on. So let's experience the web. The one thing I wanted to let you know is that we are on Netscape right now. We are on the internet. We have established a website that's internal to Kaiser Permanente. We're going to go out and visit a couple of extra websites.
And that's what you're seeing right now. This is an internal website.
The real bottom line, though, Ben, is should we buy Netscape and their IPO that's coming out soon? That's the real bottom line.
Well, the real question is, are they worth more than people think they're worth?
Gotcha.
Question with a question.
Actually, this presentation was programmed in HTML, hypertext markup language, and it's a very simple authoring tool. Anybody can publish, and that is one of the issues that we need to address here in the IT process sponsor group. Anybody can publish, anybody can buy a web server, and anybody can be a Kaiser Permanente homepage. So let's look at what some of the real World Wide Web sites might look like. We have a commercially developed tape that one of our potential technology partners developed to announce one of their website products. We're going to ignore the product itself and just look at the concepts, I think, the business concepts of how websites are used.
It's on the web right now, but all we know is that it is growing at such a rapid rate that it will soon be everybody.
There's a huge interest in companies getting involved with the web right now. There's thousands of new commercial domains signing up each month.
What the World Wide Web does is it just closens the relationship between the community and government.
I think almost any company that has a marketing message can benefit from the web.
The web is a wonderful medium in which to interact with people, and that's something you do not get from many of the other standard media.
The World Wide Web. Today, everyone seems to be talking about it, and with good reason. During the last year and a half, the web has transformed the internet into a visual, media-rich world of information, accessible to anyone. The web is the fastest growing part of the internet. During this year alone, the number of web servers is expected to rise from 10,000 to over 100,000. Why this explosion of activity? Simple. The web allows any organization to communicate quickly and easily with millions of people all over the world. What's more, the web makes full use of multimedia, including audio, graphics, colorful images, and even full motion video. And thanks to secure server software from Netscape Communications, companies are beginning to conduct online commerce directly over the web. Silicon Graphics, the pioneer of visual computing, is taking the lead in this exciting new technology, helping organizations of all kinds get up and running on the World Wide Web. In the next few minutes, we'll visit 3 companies who, with the help of Silicon Graphics, are actively harnessing the power and scope of the web to transform the worlds of publishing, advertising, and government. Wired magazine burst onto the scene in 1993, and the publishing world hasn't been quite the same since. Informed and irreverent, Wired has become the premier chronicle of the digital revolution. Not surprisingly, Wired was one of the first publishers to recognize the potential of the internet and the World Wide Web.
When we publish Wired magazine, that's a 2 to 3 month cycle. It's a monthly magazine. There's a long-term process to it. Online publishing is much more immediate, it's much more interactive. It's something that you can write today and you can print today and you can publish today.
Hotwired is the online sister publication of Wired and has quickly become one of the most popular sites on the web, receiving over 300,000 hits per day.
Hotwired is an online cyberstation. Hotwired is something that is immediate. Hotwired is an integrated space where we provide content on a daily basis. It's content that you want to interact with right away. Hotwired is something that you can come into every day and enjoy and talk back to.
Hotwired posts all original content that takes full advantage of the web's interactive multimedia environment. Like Wired, Hotwired has been a runaway hit with advertisers eager to reach Hotwired's 100,000 subscribers. In fact, the two are complementary, each helping attract more subscribers to the other.
Hotwired has made the web into a real business. We are making money, and we have brought in a blue chip roster of sponsors. Sponsors include a number of large corporate customers, including Volvo, MCI, Sprint, AT&T, Club Med, Zima, the Saturn Cars.
As the popularity of the web has grown, so has the desire of companies to reach the large and growing audience of web users, estimated today at over 5 million. Organic Online was founded less than 2 years ago as a new kind of advertising agency, one that helps its corporate clients take advantage of the World Wide Web to reach their target audiences in effective and memorable ways.
Many companies are spending thousands, if not millions of dollars on marketing campaigns these days. What the World Wide Web allows them to do is put up their marketing campaign the way they'd like to see it and actually have people view products, perhaps buy products, and then actually support the products right online.
Using the web, companies create relationships with customers rather than just talking at them.
The World Wide Web allows you to track users, to see what they're looking at, see what is successful, but perhaps more interestingly, see what's not successful, and try and mold it so that it gets the message across.
And the economics of marketing on the web are irresistible. For less than the cost of a color brochure, a company can deliver a multimedia presentation to millions, 24 hours a day.
Company presences on the internet, on the World Wide Web, are about information. By looking at that information, users become empowered to make a decision about a product. Now you can actually complete the transaction online so that you could buy that product right off your desktop.
Businesses are not the only ones that have recognized the power of the World Wide Web. Hundreds of government and non-profit organizations.
It's long, but I think that's good enough. It basically demonstrates that there's a place on the web for, and recommended place on the web for Kaiser Permanente. We'll make some recommendations.
New status symbol is the personal web page.
Yes, yes. Well, actually, we figured if there's 78,000 Kaiser Permanente employees, we could have 78,000 web pages. So, that would be not problematic. Each of us could learn just a little bit of web page design and get out there. Or we could look at actually supporting a consistently coordinated web project. Let's look at the growth real quickly. Exponential growth in the number of machines that are connected to the internet. In the last year, as you can tell, the exponential curve has doubled in the capacity for internet connections. In the last 5 years, it's increased a factor of 5. We've also seen a 500% growth in virtual locations on the World Wide Web. They're called websites, and it represents either a person, a corporation, or an entity.
And that's 500% growth in 7 months.
In 7 months, in 1995. That's right. Now, growth by domain. The Internet and the World Wide Web originated as an educational tool to transmit educational research and documents. It moved into the government sector, and as you can see, in 1995, which is the magenta pink color, we've seen an exponential growth again in the area of commerce. So what's really happening is a shift from education, government to commerce. Demographics. Who's using the net? Well, the average age is about 35. The average income per single user is $69,000. And we see that there's somewhere in the ratio of 4 to 1 females to males, although 11% growth in females in the last 2 years. And at that rate of female growth, that increase, we're going to see gender equity in 1997. So I think that that's something that will show some leveling out. Obviously, computer-related, educational design, professional, and management are some of the greater areas that people come from in terms of occupation. And Kaiser Permanente has an incredibly good opportunity to meet the types of information that are most frequently accessed on websites, which are reference, electronic news, and product information. So why is the Internet important to Kaiser Permanente? And given this is interactive, feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to talk very quickly because I'd like us to get to the point where we can say if we can take some action, if we can move forward, and what more information we might need. Doing business on the Internet is a new way of doing business for us. It talks about a new medium of information, dissemination, and interactivity. We can track who's communicating with us and what it is that we're putting out on the web. Obviously, availability and accessibility are issues that need to be coordinated with an enterprise services level of support in information technology. The alternative is that we'll have a number of websites. We could have 450 web servers in this region just as easily. with no redundant servers and no redundant backup. So it's a major issue if we want to put out a message communicating with people. New market segments, for example, we need to be available to them. Obviously, rapid development and rapid response is a great benefit of doing business on the internet. And business communication, we are told by our marketing communication people that they are expected now to do email. Internet email is the common and standard format for business communication. Business brochures, paper text is no longer the business standard. They are asked to communicate with their constituents and clients across internet email. Obviously, the planning for financial transactions is something that we look forward to. Now, the second reason we thought doing business on the internet is important is that we need to look at adding value to our organization, adding value to our program, and adding value to our members. What does that mean? What might that look like? We've come up with an equation. Basically, simply said, value is the area of quality, service, and access over cost. We see service and access being the areas of the equation in which the web access may in fact enhance this formula. Service and access, service could be delivered across the internet. Access could be enhanced across the internet. And again, this list of applications, 3 pages, are possible ways that we could go for internet business to enhance this equation. Moving forward very quickly, the work groups have recommended that our presence on the internet is absolutely imperative. Who is doing what? Who else is seeing the internet? Let's look at why we need to establish an internet services and web services project. Our recommendation is to establish internal consistency within our region. What are we doing outside of our region and across Kaiser Permanente? Let's look at some real websites.
And this is where it gets cool because we're actually going to link out to the internet and get the real live websites that are out there and just see what's going on.
First of all, within the last week, this is not a long-standing website. Northwest region, under the direction of Clay Anderson and Marketing Services, developed a homegrown web page and put themselves up. So here's what they look like, and here's what they do. You can actually get in, find out what's new, what are group customers doing, what are health tips, and so move real forward, real quickly. This tells about who they are, what they do. Has anybody seen this one before? Okay.
They basically provide a wide range of information for targeted specifically at their members and group customers, brokers and consultants, and information in general about the region and the national program. They also provide health tips and a way for members to talk back through their send mail option.
This is very interesting. Let's look at this one.
Which send mail?
Yes.
Ben, I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but I noticed earlier they had a section on non-urgent medical appointments. Can you actually make an appointment through this, or is it just spin off a message for an appointment?
The back end to this is it looks wonderful. They do not interface with their appointment system, but what happens is if we get into it,
you want to do this?
let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. There is a form for requesting an appointment.
We're contacting their website right now.
This is highly impressive. Now, what's behind the form? What's behind the form is somebody in the Northwest region who's an appointment clerk, etc. Sits there, take the form off the internet, and schedules an appointment and communicates back. So the back end is not an interface to their appointment system, but the potential is obviously there. To the member, who knows? And who cares?
Our link's kind of slow. It's kind of interesting how we managed to connect from here. We're actually going through about 3 different networks before we actually connect to the internet to get from here to Walnut Creek to out to the internet. So,
while we're going there, let me talk about the stage of development of homepage capability in the other regions. Southern California is looking at virtually the same thing. Northern California, obviously, this is our look and feel. And Program Offices is, as we speak right now, developing a homepage, the graphical standards and the graphical look in the back of Regional AV here. They commissioned Regional AV here to develop the look and feel for a program-wide homepage. Happens to be on the machine that you bought, the Indy, the interactive multimedia development machine. So we are engaged in developing that capability, and here's the non-urgent medical appointment. What does that form look like?
Basically, what it does is it allows a member to,
Hello?
I think,
Oh, okay.
That's cute.
So, you can see that
Evolving.
they're still in the early stages of doing this, but this is basically what it looks like.
Right.
And
I think in the sake of time, let's go back and let's...
basically what thing you can
There
do
it is, right
There we are.
is you fill in, your health record number and your name and stuff, and then select a facility, and you can have them call you back or email you back, and just click this button to submit the form. Now, Mary explained that what actually happens is it gets printed out and manually entered, but you can see the possibilities for interface.
But as far as the member and non-member is concerned, you can do online appointment
That's our
processing.
problem behind it.
Yes, yes. So, are you impressed? Okay, this is great potential.
So that's where that comes from.
And just to tell you, the Call Center Technologies Advisory Group called me up Friday and said, we're ready to take what we've done in interactive voice response units and convert it to internet capability. Can we work with you? So in Northern California, people do want to do appointment processing soon. So the same capability is something we need to begin plans for. Okay, Fremont Medical Center. A physician named Peter Hendler, who is highly inspired on internet development and has been hired by Tom under, I think, the guidance of your medical informatics
It's
area.
informatics group, right?
Will be helping us as we start up internet capabilities. This is Peter's own home version. Literally, he authored this, he designed it. You can go in and say, what does the Fremont Medical Offices offer me? What are some health tips? What are your member services here in Fremont?
I think it's important to point out that this doc just did it by himself. This isn't something that's extremely complex or arcane to learn, and it's going to make publishing available to everybody.
Right.
So do we want to visit anything?
I have to suggest the caveat is we could have 47 different home pages just like this for 47 different facilities.
But they wouldn't be just like this.
Very similar. And what it would look like on the web is that there are 47 different Kaiser Permanente. So the issue is how well do we want to plan for that kind of capability? It's going to happen. Plans are in place for multiple home pages.
I can see the Fresno one now. You'll see it. It'll have Hank's picture right in there. Hank and Ed Glavis, kind of arm in arm. I can see it.
Okay.
Actually, we do have Jed Weisberg in the Fremont
Would you like to
page.
see Jed?
Yeah, let's see Jed.
He's got a nice big picture of those.
Okay.
Message from our chief.
Obviously, the potentials are enormous.
Well, I want to see the message. There we go.
Welcome.
There's the
It's pretty
message.
textual. And I think the opportunity of a Kaiser Permanente website is to
This is
get
not too long.
very, very creative in how we deliver information. It doesn't have to be text-based information exclusively. We do lots of images, lots of interactivity, and track the kind of information that people seek and the kind of information that people request. Now, again, in information technology services, go ahead. One of our web capability service providers is Frank Hattiar. Reports to you, Elaine, I believe. Isn't it
Works
Frank?
for Dave.
Yes.
Works for Dave. So Dave and Frank, this is Dave and Frank's homepage, okay? Anybody can see it, it's internal. We've developed...
No, not anybody can see it. It's limited through a file to just our network.
Anybody who can access it internally will be able to see this. This is built as a dummy demonstration. This is not the real thing.
And that's because of security concerns. We were aware that there are security concerns with allowing access to our internal networks. So,
is there anything that people would like to see?
Well, I'd like to see some of the competitive ones that you had up.
Good.
Yeah.
We're going there next.
we're about to get to our competitors.
Going there next. Blue Cross Blue Shield had a huge splash in most of the healthcare publications. BSBC Online, Healthcare Online. So they didn't even have their website up, but they did the
California's
publicity.
not. That's Massachusetts. And
This
since
is
there's
Mass.
47 different blue
Yes.
plans.
Right.
Okay.
But I want to tell you, the communication, the public affairs announcement was out before their website was up. So nobody really particularly cared. It was just a big splash.
So,
What do they give us?
well, they provide a lot of stuff. It's mostly corporate information and health tips, basic kind of stuff. They're not doing any of the member interaction kind of things yet. They're basically in stage 1 of development, which is providing pre-market type information. Okay. Stanford.
Stanford has provided a whole lot of leadership in internet services. They've developed a Gopher search tool. They have tremendous numbers of databases that they access across the internet. I've spent a whole day at Stanford University and never even seen the scope of services that they provide internally. Medical informatics is a large capability and evolving and building, and there's a lot. What would you like to see? What do you want to see?
How about the one right above research? What was that? Healthcare, it's in.
Here? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what you can get at Stanford Health Services, at the medical center.
So can you drill down on these? Or?
Yeah, we can
Sure.
go further down, just pick a site and we'll keep going.
Cardiology.
That's a good
Cardiology?
one.
Preventive cardiology clinic here. So you can see how it's an easy way to link through large amounts of information, but yet have it organized in a way that's easily accessible.
Right. Why don't you go back one step, and let's look at the international services. There was something about international medical services. The other reason I want to stimulate the process coordinating group to start thinking is Stanford University's strategy around telemedicine is to be the telemedicine hub of the Pacific Rim. They are going all over California saying, we will be the hub of telemedicine services. There will be some competition for that market, but they thoroughly expect to be out there and are partnering with Singapore General Hospital.
And they're also providing a way to feed back with them so that to open those channels of communication that we were talking about.
Gee, I didn't see the languages before.
They kindly provide other languages.
Malay. So they're talking about very definitely becoming an international delivery capability.
So we were down in the Stanford side.
Group Health Cooperative of Puget Sound is something that is another site. I think we've done a lot of communication with Group Health, haven't we, over the years? Again, Group Health of Puget Sound is centered in the Seattle area with a fairly high level of technology-enabled customer base. There's a lot of technology development in the Seattle-Redmond area, and they service those areas.
And here they're providing information available to the members, and this is like publishing. They're able to publish like the way Hotwired is, instead of on a 2 to 3 to 6 month development cycle, to write, and publish today. They provide a...
Pete, are you seeing this okay?
I am.
Good. Okay. Let's go back and one more quick. Foundation Health Plan has also developed a website. It's actually pretty colorful. What we don't know behind our competitors' development of these websites is if they have a full-blown strategy that evolves over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We don't know those things, but our work groups are going to recommend to you a strategy.
Can I see products and services? Just kind of curious what that looks like.
Can you click on the left-hand button there?
Products and services,
Over here?
Yep.
please.
The Healthcare Information Center. Geez.
I wanted to take the health quiz.
It's embarrassing. We can't take the health code.
Don't
Just think
take
if Tom didn't get some of them right.
Oops, I don't want to take some of those in public.
Yeah.
Did we lose this puppy?
No, we're
It's
in
retrieval.
process.
Must be highly graphic to be doing that.
Yeah, they provide a pretty graphic type interface. You can see from their original page, it was almost completely graphic and very little text. Yeah, so they have a pretty slick design.
At least it's colorful. It's it's highly text-based.
Well,
Is
there's
there
their
any
senior product, there's their
Right,
senior advantage
right.
equivalent.
services offered to individuals, to employers?
We do individuals.
Sure.
Off and on, over the decades?
There are times that refuse to sell.
I think what's interesting is we have had in Northern California brokers approach us saying, we would love to demonstrate, the products and services you have available, but we don't have anything but this little brochure. We really need something to catch people's attention competitively.
Well, the broker thing's a whole issue in and of itself.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a tough one. I understand that
Yep.
issue pretty well.
Okay, let's move
That's
on.
nice.
Now, out of all this, we've created the need, we've created the demand for you. I think it's pretty obvious that there are great opportunities. The work groups that have been brought together around clinical and business issues, around technical, legal, and security issues have made some recommendations for you. First of all, who were they? The clinical and business issues was a highly charged group, and their recommendation was just do it. They want to see a phased approach to a project. They want to see it sponsored, organized, coordinated, and funded. And the technical, legal, security, intellectual property group on the right was a group that attempted to solve some of the problems, and oversight was one of the major problems. We have detailed recommendations on each of those areas. I have not included them in the presentation because they're too detailed. Let's go on to what are the overall recommendations of the work groups. The work groups' combined recommendations are, point 2 is the main reason we've come to you to ask for an R&D Internet and World Wide
Point
Web.
1 mean national, Mary? When you said program-wide,
Yes.
you mean national?
Yes, we want to participate.
Okay.
The home page that's under development and design on the
Yeah.
machine you bought in the back room
Yeah.
here is the home page. That's
Mhm.
number 1,
Okay.
that we coordinate with that effort.
Okay.
We can either leave Fremont and every other medical office off the coordination of that home page, or we can
Mhm.
include it. Number 2 is what we've come to you. So support the concept and the development, sponsorship, the oversight, and the funding for Web Services Project. To look at a phased approach. The group recommendations suggest that we develop a phased approach based on mitigation of risks. We need oversight, recommend a strategy group to support the work of the project. Focus externally. And to make sure we're clear about accountability and oversight in the region. One of the reasons we suggested this was an R&D effort is that it is a new form of communication for us. There are some inherent risks around what is the real business benefit. We need to define that. Legal issues have yet to be clarified. R&D projects would normally have a level of unpredictability and uncertainty, and that certainly exists in a web services project. Okay?
Plus, it's not clear how long the web is going to be a free ride or as free as it is today.
That's true, and we don't know what the next generation of that network technology will be. We suspect that there will be some payback. We just haven't, tested it and measured it for ourselves. The phased implementation would start, if funded and coordinated, the recommendation would be about $9.95 with the general information to integrate with the KP homepage. Marketing Communications under Regional Health Plan Services has offered to coordinate with us once we get this project in place. The local marketing efforts in the medical offices are already planning to do this on a discoordinated basis. The second phase would be, as recommended by the work groups, a member-specific information, and that may be, we'll go into some detail on what those may be. The third may be secured financial transactions, and then into 96, looking at developing policy and approvals around any kind of patient-specific information that is transmitted across the internet.
The other thing to note is that none of the competitors' sites are anywhere beyond phase 1.
Right.
Mhm.
Because there's so much analysis that needs
Right.
to go into providing member-specific information.
Good point.
Is anybody interested in any detailed possible application? This is phase 1. What could we do? We could do instant publishing press releases. Jill
In fact,
Felden.
Tom had suggested that, I think,
Right.
at one of the meetings we had in labor strategy recently.
Right. Yeah, I think
Tom's-
Kathy Blackburn's willing to put the content out.
Tom's point is number 4, instant publishing.
Right.
I can tell you that there is someone in place in our region for each one of these projects already who's called me. I mean, my phone is absolutely overburdened with what we could do on the internet. We need the capability to do it.
Does CBS use the second one that you had up there?
Do you want to go back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Program-wide, yes, could. That's what Peter Hendler's done in Fremont. But we could do it for our entire program and for our Northern California region and for each facility and for each medical office.
And for each doctor.
Right. So, phase 2. We could get into some online registrations without the back-end interface to our Reg Plus system, but we could do registrations. Many of our employer work sites are beginning to really expect this kind of communication with us.
If you do the online registration with the, now with the MasterCard, so people can prepay?
And that's based on the technology evolving to that
Right.
point. It's not existent yet, but with Netscape and MasterCard partnering together, that's definitely going to become a possibility.
Also, B of A is going to be doing payment processing over the net, so that's really kind of saying the big guys are stepping up to the
Everyone's looking
building
into
security.
it
Yeah.
somewhere now.
If we had more time, and maybe after the meeting, we'll go in and we'll show you what Wells Fargo does. We love to see how much money Dave Barnett has in the bank, because I can look at it on the internet.
Savings account.
Well, I love it, you know, it's great.
You can't look at it, but
No,
he can look at it.
only Dave Barnett can look at the information. So after the
That's
meeting,
not
if
true.
anybody's
As long as
interested.
Dave's willing to share his password, we can all look at
I'll
it.
That's
publish my
good,
password,
good.
you can all look
Yeah.
at it.
All right, so I think the one thing about internet phased implementation is based at each point, the planning will be based on what risks do we have a level of confidence in addressing. So phase 4 may be patient-specific information. The issues are enormous. I think Tom can speak to this, but his area of CIS is developing a member access interface, and this could be, frankly, one of the tools in which we communicate out across the net to specific members.
I think a lot of it is really about interface, like online prescription
That's right.
refills, you know, that's
That's
kind
right.
of getting
That's
there
right.
pretty quickly
And
now.
those people have called us. We're not there.
Yeah.
Did
There
you
are
say-
issues.
Mary,
Yes, Pete?
Mary, did you say the health education material could be also accessible through this?
That's probably the
Sure.
easiest thing to do, and the Interactive Technology Initiative, Pete, is funded now for $5 million to build a knowledge repository of that kind of information and more. That knowledge repository would be the basic database and perhaps some retrieval for core applications. And those are 2 areas the Interactive Technology Initiative are funded to do. They don't have the infrastructure in place to do it, nor the architecture planning, nor the security and safety requirements in place. But that is part of what we're suggesting. What do we need to do to get there, though? Pardon?
That could be a program-wide application.
Yes, that could be. That could be. What are the issues we need to address? Now, one of the things we've done is looked at the organizational coordination that's going to be required for internet capability. And can we switch to our overhead camera? This is a high-tech version of Mary England's complex look at what if we had web services in place that were embedded in an initiative called Internet Services. Who interacts with Internet Services besides electronic data interchange, financial transactions, electronic commerce, telemedicine, audiovisual and interactive technology services? And as I suggested since Friday, this needs to be very dynamic, fluid, and three-dimensional with call center technology interfacing. So the organizational complexity is almost too much to believe. I mean, Tom, how much of your time do you think your group is spending on organizational interface?
Well, you know,
Enough.
yeah, but even though we're trying to spend time other places.
Right. But the
it's hard to
complexity,
pay attention
the
to it.
complexity makes it imperative that you have people in place to see this coordination through, and that it be well planned and integrated. Obviously, we need a communication and engagement strategy to bring people in who are doing local development into a coordinated project. Fundamentally, we need to define the research question. What is the business benefit? We need to develop policy. and develop the risk mitigation analysis and planning for each of the phased requirements. The primary thing we've come to you is to ask for executive and/or process sponsorship. Are you the people who would like to sponsor a project like this? Do you see the need for a coordinated project? And what will it take for us to get this developed? We need new human and technical infrastructure, business unit ownership over the content, and obviously a multi-project management approach. Rapid deployment is the imperative here. We need some consulting expertise from the outside. We have some internal, and we need to acquire some external expertise. This is an opportunity as a process sponsor group for you all to say, yes, it is time for us to develop policy standards and communication coordination, consistency in terms of look and feel. And the coordination, again, is between business units, between CSAs, across the region, and with other regions. We've done a first cut high-level cost projection through the end of 1995 based on a phased approach. The hardware-software costs are your initial investment. Network connection is a 12-month type fee, and the project management costs would be over the first 12 months. So the total startup through 95 projected costs for a web services and internet services project would be under $1 million.
What's your guess on how much of that would be in the form of existing budgets today, if any?
I think our architect consultant is Dave, and I think that would be existing.
Well, the hardware and the network connections are going to have to be new. It's a new service, but in terms of the people, that was the big question. How much of who fits where?
You do not have in place a web services leader, someone to coordinate the multi-project management approach. You do not have a web services coordinator, a system administrator. We do have the in-house development expertise. And
so architect and security consultants were for a rapid deployment plan. If we wanted to say, do this today, Dave doesn't have time to architect the entire thing by, say, the end of the business day today. We might need to call in an outside consultant, and we definitely want to call in someone to look at the security before we just go putting this stuff out there.
And how much of that was capital? Could you space back up there if you would, please?
Yeah, capital costs, we didn't total it out differently, but the capital was
less than
basically
half.
The hardware and the network, so.
Less than half.
Yeah.
So it's about a third, so about 300,000.
Yeah. This can be done, I think, with the... I'm sorry, but we thought this was bottom line. We thought it could not be done well.
375,000.
Okay. I was just trying to get a sense of what was capital, what's operating. Okay.
Now, on the redundant web servers, we're talking about backup capability and coordinating with the same recommendation, Netscape Commerce servers that Southern California intends to invest in.
This does play nicely into what Lawrence has been writing about and talking about a lot about the kind of the national consistency look and feel.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So in summary, this is a two-way window between Kaiser Permanente as an organization and into the home. It really gives us that great opportunity to reach people who are highly technology enabled. There was no doubt on the part of the work groups that this is nothing short of an imperative, ought to be an initiative. We need to explore the potential business benefits and perhaps create them for ourselves. New products, new services, new markets are all possible. And that this is not only just a business communication standard, but having just spent 3 out of the last 6 weeks in Washington, D.C., with people helping to design and develop a national healthcare information infrastructure, Internet and World Wide Web may well be the early evolutionary technology of national healthcare information infrastructure.
Does that imply it might be throwaway then?
I think some of it will be because it doesn't have object-oriented technology database management systems embedded in it. It doesn't have a telemedicine capability embedded in it yet.
Not yet.
Not throwaway entirely, but an early adopter technology, in my opinion. I mean, what do the strategists say? So we have a time-critical decision point for you. And really, the coup is that our program-wide 50th anniversary campaign will be focused at internet communication. Program office just last week, maybe Thursday or Friday, said, go, do it. It's the linchpin. So we can follow, we can lead.
Or we can get out of the way. That's the other
get out of
third.
the way.
Mary, on this total figure you have here, I just want to understand.
Yes, Phil.
If we're talking about this as a program-wide thing, this 955, as you see it, is the program-wide investment?
This is Northern California's
This is
very
our-
focused investment. I have not had a chance
Okay.
today to talk with the people at program offices who will be investing in some of their own capability. Additionally, this really does not factor in any of the content that the business units might develop. Doesn't talk about the investment for member access, doesn't talk about the knowledge repository from interactive technology or the core applications there. We factored in none of that.
But is this decision independent of program office?
Yes.
Okay. And also, if I read this right, since you had multiple phases, this is just the phase one.
This is 1995. This is getting the Kaiser Permanente Northern California region specific information.
Okay.
I'm sorry, general
And for
information.
what you've defined as phase one,
Yes,
general KP information.
right.
Although that capital investment in terms of hardware
Mhm.
will probably carry through the next few phases, at least in some ways. There may be additional costs incurred later, but that's not throwaway. The
Okay.
redundant web servers is not $225,000 just for phase one.
Mhm.
Those are going to be employed in some way in the other phases as well.
Okay.
I think one of the issues we've talked about with Elaine is capacity planning. How many hits might we be able to take in a day? We can measure those kinds of things. We can find out who it is, where they're from, what they wanted, would they track, would they access.
See, the number you have here, as I look at it, look like annualized numbers. Even though you're saying it's for 95, these are really annualized numbers as I look at it.
Yeah, for
Okay.
yes, for network and project management, that's true, although I think your investment in hardware, software is going to
That's one
pay
time.
back over the years.
I mean, that's because they're not going to go away.
Mhm.
Those people don't come here for 3 months and then go away.
Sure.
You know?
The things we haven't factored in are what are our costs for securing financial transactions? What is that software going to cost?
Sure.
The one thing I have very little confidence in is our number on the firewall software.
Mhm.
I'm very uncertain about that.
In fact, I have some experience in that area, and I can tell you,
Good.
solving the firewall problem is not easy.
I know. That's the one area I could say is a huge question mark for us.
This way, I think questions
Okay.
for Mary and the group.
Yeah.
Well,
We can spend
again,
a
what's
few
the
minutes talking.
concept, if we had a program-wide coordination here, somebody would get the program page, or, could you go straight to the Fremont page, or, how would it all be coordinated from the surfer point of view?
I would say let's envision it as the entry page to Kaiser Permanente. The first entry door you go through would be supported and sponsored, and it's being developed right now under Bob Bodine's area. And that's the home page. That's the big umbrella.
And that's the program.
That's the program
Okay.
level. But
Okay, so as a
the-
surfer, then you
Right, you would
hit,
say
you hit homepage for the program.
homepage, Northern California.
Okay, now you're down in Northern California. Okay.
Well, at that top point, you have Northern California, Southern California,
Right.
Northwest.
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Okay.
I would think you'd have a map, probably, of the regions, because people aren't going to know the difference between Northern and Southern California. You're just going to plunk on the place you want to be. So we are in the process of developing that. It sounds very exciting. And again, we couldn't do it without your investment in the Indie Multimedia Development
I
Machine.
remember that deal. And I remember Bob's promise to me on that, too.
Yes.
Oh,
That I haven't extracted yet, but I remember the promise.
what a memory.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I remember too.
Yes.
The synergy is great. The coordination opportunity is wonderful. We're working together with Northwest Region, Southern California and Program Office, but we're not in place.
What I heard in Tom's question was also the issue of whether or not generalized questions like the kind of services Kaiser have, et cetera, will be developed and standardized at the program-wide level versus
Right.
each region developing their own on this. And I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that today.
E. Marie Robertson at Program Office and Communications is recommending a content standard, but I don't know that she's recommending a single content look and feel. I don't think she could because there's variation in product and service between regions. That's a great question. I just don't have the answer. And
But
that's...
your concept is that, somebody would punch Northern California, then once they're in Northern California,
Sure.
There may be some generic
Right.
system-wide things there, but then there may be individual geographical Fremont, whatever.
And my suggestion
Yes.
is unless you
Right.
establish sponsorship where those kinds of ideas can be tested and bounced off of, and oversight where recommendations can be made, project funding, that you have a multi-project web services leader, somebody who can go to look at those questions and look at the issues of coordination, you won't get an answer. You'll
And
get
then
100 answers.
What is the relationship to, you sort of grossly define ITI as developing content for it, but what would you see the overlap being between the Interactive Technology Initiative and this?
I think there'll be some overlap. An example of overlap would be the Knowledge Repository Project could be a great deal of the embedded development content for the core applications. The core applications could reside and be transmitted across a web server. For the times and places that interactive technology would like to communicate across the internet. As you know, our interactive technology initiative recommendations are now 8-10 months old, and we did not plan for internet services. We didn't plan the security, we didn't plan the web server capability. And I have to say, even as one of the co-leaders of the early recommendations, it was a blind spot to us. It was still something they do out there. We thought about it, but we really didn't plan for it.
Because, if we're looking for a place for sponsorship, how about the ITI people had some sponsorship for this?
I would say it's not one of the projects that's been funded,
Mm-hmm.
one of the 6 areas or one of the 10 projects that were funded and recommended.
Right.
But it certainly is one of the ways in which interactive technology content can be delivered.
Right.
Your thinking, Tom, is it to be part of the scope of that? Is that?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't hot when you did the plans, but this is sort of where it's happening now.
Yeah.
And that's like $5 million that was set aside to do. Why spend that $5 million testing things further down the road when this is where,
We got to question our priorities here and rethink them.
Yeah.
I think the additional thing is that what we're recommending to you, a website would be an obvious infrastructure capability for interactive technology. We are recommending to you a much, much broader project
Mm-hmm.
that would look at the possibilities of things beyond the member-specific information.
Mm-hmm.
It would include the financial transactions.
But it seems to me like it's a logical part of exploring the whole interactive realm.
Right.
So it might be more logical to have them do the exploring, when they're also looking into telemedicine and all the other stuff. And that this is like the short term, let's do it focus, and then answering those other questions in terms of what's available on the internet and how you develop boundaries between that and what we're doing in CIS to sort of get the internal situation together and building the databases and all that stuff, and what you do in the public domain and interactively. It might be better for a single group to be looking at that rather than...
I would say for some of the applications, the core applications, it makes great sense. For the web servers that support those core applications, it make great sense. But I think this is a much larger technology infrastructure project than interactive technology initially was funded for, especially the phased approach. So I think the coordination and the parallel development is very important.
So again, if we think of sort of like access to public domain infrastructure, the question is, who are the clients that are going to be adding value on top of the infrastructure? And ITI would be one of them, more from an applied research point of view, what else is emerging, but there's also marketing and
The marketing
else,
and advertising folks are extremely anxious to do some of this work. And I think we just envision it being a much larger arena of planning and development than the discrete projects that were funded.
I'm just
Now-
thinking conceptually, if you're
Right.
thinking our group is an
Right.
infrastructure group, it's sort
Right.
of like a public
If-
domain.
Excuse me,
infrastructure.
hello?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pete.
Hey, I'm gonna need to leave for
Yeah,
another
we-
meeting, but I
few of
just
us
wanted
do.
just to share my support for this technologies. It's not a matter of whether we want to do it, it's just when we want to do this. It may be the right time. I think we can easily make a business case. Just looking down the directory, we've got are some of our major competitors already in the accessing internet users. And there's a large number of users that you saw the graph. So I don't know I don't know if this is something that is ideal for this group to sponsor, but I'm in favor of some group moving forward and getting into and learning more about this technology.
Yeah,
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Pete.
I agree. I think what you're hearing is a lot of enthusiasm over
Yeah.
this, just trying
Yeah.
to...
Where
So I
would
guess
it
what we
live?
want to do is we're kind of enthusiastic. We don't want to end up creating 3 more circles
Right.
on the outside of that. I think that, and I think that's the point.
I think it's important if we look back.
Take care, Pete. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll pass out to you this sort of technology intersections. I would say for the planning of the infrastructure, the technical, legal, security, and intellectual properties areas, we need perhaps to place some of the accountability right within Information Technology Services Enterprise area under Joe Yanoff. I think certainly the architecture, the configuration management, and it would also interface with the lanes area. But content development, my conceptualization would be that content really is developed by the business unit. For example, ITI, for example, CIS, for example, marketing communications and in regional health plan services, that they would have accountability for developing the content. So I don't think it's a one or another. How could we help answer the question?
Let me suggest this. I think there's a lot of interest in what you've presented. I think what I'd like to do at a minimum is have some dialogue with Tom offline and kind of talk about how we see, because he's a link with the ITI. I've certainly got the ITS piece. And I think there was general support of this notion. Is that safe to say? Pete cast his vote early. Joyce cast her vote early also. She's very intrigued by this also. She cast the general vote that always gets cast is, we're fighting to keep a respiratory therapist and we're spending millions on technology and kind of how's that come together. But that's going to be kind of an ongoing concern, I think, that we're going to have. But I think Tom and I ought to talk about it, because there's the part of that that's IT is pretty straightforward. There's part of it that's programming, there's part of it that's clinical, and I think we'll put our heads together on that.
Yeah.
I'm sort of intrigued. The thing that feels like it's missing for me, and this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't, and it's that you'd kind of like to know a guesstimate on the whole thing. Yet on the other hand, if you give us a guesstimate on the whole thing, then we're going to remember the number and drive you crazy forever. But on the other hand, there's a part of this that's the teaser number, which we've kind of seen the phase 1 teaser number. And yet phase 1, while important, doesn't deliver a lot of the industrial strength, high octane value you get as you evolve this technology. So I guess one of the things I'm interested in is kind of when you sign up, what are you signing up for conceptually? And that's something I'd be very interested in terms of your question of what further information you could provide.
You're signing up for phase 1 because you can't get to phase 2 without going through phase 1, without doing those in-depth analysis of the security, the confidentiality, the intellectual property type issues, without going through that step first. So phase 1 is kind of like your key into the door to investigate phase 2.
No, I appreciate that. That's a good point. It just, sometimes you want to know kind of how big the bill is behind the door, though, too.
So are you suggesting, would you like a couple of scenarios with some cost-benefit analysis attached? I mean,
Do we have any information about what other people are spending to do this? Because Pete brought up the point, we feel like we need to do this in part because our competitors are.
Yes.
Do we believe the competitors are spending this amount of money? Are there other people that we've surveyed out in the field, maybe they're not even in healthcare, to really understand what it means to support this beyond phase 1?
Yes, and I can get that for you fairly quickly. I know $1 million makes no one blink to think about starting that new effort. So I know it's not a big cost. Compared to, say, Sun Microsystems, have you seen, their homepage is really exquisite. I will find out for you what are some of the other players starting with.
Since
and
we're
I
talking
think-
the web, I'd be real interested in seeing if we can have some more program-wide applications with this at the same time.
Meaning content.
Content and startup costs
Right.
and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Share that.
Yeah, I mean, I would think a lot of the legal and other things would be just one-time nationwide.
You'd
That's
like
right.
to, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, the thing that gets tricky is when we say that, that might mean us getting asked to do it, because the program office is kind of looking more